So this is a match against Eldlich, which is considered meta. Like this is the worst variant. Like we were testing this purposefully because this is like literally the worst variant of the deck. Pure Eldlich. Like the good variant is Eldlich and both, but still this is a relatively popular deck right now in in online tournaments. So we just wanted to show you how powerful can the Flame Noble Knight deck actually be. So first up, I'm going to comment this whole gameplay. So I lead with a copy of Unexpected Die. I chose not to lead with Medrod because I didn't have a reequipable Noble Arms, and that means that I would be forced to go into the Reno path, but the Reno path is actually way weaker if it doesn't have your use or Durandal involved. So I had like literally the worst Noble Arm to start my Medrod combo with, and yeah, in that case, I chose to resolve Boars as a priority because it would have allowed me to combo through a hand trap anyway, so as you are going to see. Uh, so I played Brigandine, I go for Isolt, and I add Gearfried, then I try to mill 4, and my opponent plays Ash Blossom. Uh, I did this because he still knew I had my normal summon, but he thought that I wouldn't have a toner. So my friend actually more or less knows what the deck does, but he tried to play a bit more ignorantly into the deck because most people won't be able to adapt over the course of a match. So most people is going to be lured into Ash Blossoming Isolde. So this is what happens. So then he tops that. Then I use my copy of Boars and my copy of Hotecler to resolve Boars effect, and then two traps and a queen. Ah no, in this scenario, sorry. In this scenario, I chose uh, like to do Rendell on the queen, and yep, I got the Rendell. In this case, if I had been more careful, like I would have sent any other equip and then 3 Durandal, which was the correct play. I took the risk because I misplayed, but don't do that. In this case, the only goal would have been to add like Durandal. Then I play Durandal and add like Olivia, then Queen, and then Olivia, and then I just proceed to my standard combo. In this case, my opponent has basically lost one card in hand for nothing, which is incredibly powerful. So, yep, I put my 2 tokens, I do my standard Fibrax, and this is why this 60 card deck is better than the 40 card version. Is because it has adaptability. Like if my opponent saw like the Noble Knight at 40 cards, he would have used the Ash Blossom into the Hulky Fibrax, and then my full game would have been stopped if I didn't have an out to the Ash Blossom. Yeah, OCG builds play like 6 out, which is Curse out, and the Cold by the Grave, but even then, it's just half the time they have Ash. Like, you are betting everything on the opener and that 5-Rax resolution. If that 5-Rax cannot resolve, the game is going to be over for you. So, yeah, this is what I get. Then I go Marker, and then the token, and then I go Roland, and then Charge Warrior, and then a draw, and then Garle, and then Olivia, and then do grenade stuff with Ogia, and then I just grenade. At this point, I decided to discard this because because Curie Bandit was not of concern to me because I could use the Carle Pop to stop it, and then Conquistador and Solemn Judgment are basically dead cards if he can't get an Eldlich, but I'm fairly certain he won't because I caught one and then I caught another way to get to it. So at this point the game is pretty much over. Imagine if I had been playing like a Aurelian combo, like the extra negation would have been pretty meaningless. It would have meant literally nothing. This was enough to win the game. So again, we move. He unfortunately dead draws another card because it's a deck full of traps. Let's check this build. We chose a really standard build just to showcase you. There's nothing really outstanding here. Is a really standard pure Eldlich build. So yeah, it really doesn't have anything particularly powerful or noticeable against it. This was just to showcase you the average power level of decks when you have to go first, because pretty much the most common scenario is that they will open a single hand trap and that's literally going to mean nothing to you. So then I just play my 5 racks and chain Roland and use the other Roland and then use Carle. I pop Curry Bandit and then he sets 3 and then use my Carle for Arfi Daughter and that's pretty much game. So it's basically I just lead with Wars to set up the rest of the green game in case something gets or goes off the ground. He Judgments and then he Conquistadors, which was his last card, and then I just basically beat him. Like the Eldlich deck legitimately couldn't do a simple thing. It was literally way too powerful for the Eldlich deck to matter. So I'm gonna show you the game too. Yeah, this was today, right? We actually use it as side deck here, so it's going to be interesting. Like what I did here was to side deck a lot of tech cards, like Eagdar, Tristan. So if you see me making weird plays, it's because I didn't have those cards in deck. What I did was to add background removal because it's like the only thing that matters against Eldlich. So rather than move engine cards, I removed like supplementary cards like Eagdar or Tristan, etc. I get a good hand, so and he gets a shitty hand, unfortunately, but what can I do? It's not my fault. So he plays Corset Atlant, and then plays a Golden Boy, and then Foolish Burial for a counter trap, and then Conquistador. I mean, even if he has 2 dead cards, this card is not that this hand is not that awful as he has 2 interruptions, like 1 destruction and 1 negation. So we are going to be playing around 2 disruptions, which is important. It's for you to see how resilient this deck can get if you do things properly. So I just draw for my turn, I draw that card, I play Durandal on the Golden Boy, to try to force like either the Conquistador or the Golden Land Forever, because if I put it into my monster, I would have been toast. So I do that just to get an Olivier to my hand, which is an important extender. So an important conditional extender, additional extender, right? So what happens here is that I lead with Gearfried, as you can see, and then I was going to go into the battle phase to try to steal the Eldlich, the Golden Boy, and force this thing on the process, but he decided he didn't want to have to do anything with it, because he probably was trying to tell me that he had a hand trap, but I didn't have like much choice, like to try to play around the counter and the hand trap as well, so I allowed him to do my Gearfried dies, then I lead with a copy of Ogier. Why I do this? Because I can extend with Renault and Olivier that way, and Medrod was basically a vanilla monster. So I use Ogier. He gets a threat from me of me dumping another equip spell or dumping like something else. So he basically just decides to cut this because he thought that I wouldn't have enough discards to play the Ogier and the Olivia and another monster to keep comboing off. So he was like, okay, if I cut his normal summon, he's not going to be able to extend further, and I'm gonna win. That's his logic, if you ask him. It was a bit risky, but I can't say that it was totally wrong. Like if we see it in a retrospective, of course it was wrong because I had enough cards to extend. But that's besides the point, because it's not easy when you are actually playing the game to see this kind of stuff. You have to make decisions on the spot. So again, I forced the counter and then I use Olivier. I was lucky enough to have Renault to stand. I just used Renault's effect to add Durandal for the next turn. I add a Gearfried for the next turn. And then just for the standard combo. Like if he had a hand trap, he would have used it in the Isolde, so I knew I was on the clear by this point. So I use a Metal Marcher, which is the standard play. I go for Roland, to start your Shock Warrior, and a free draw, then Carle. I sided out like a Smoke Grenade. That is why I triggered Carle effect. Like a Smoke Grenade is a card I only leave in when I go first. Even if I had it, it wouldn't have been like any help, so it's fine if you side it out, because this is a complex deck to side out or to side in cards, so it's fine if you do that going second. Like every time you go first, leave Grenade. Every time you go second, like it's okay to side it out. I would totally advise you to do that. So he just dumps a card, and then I just clear his board and poke. And then I do standard Rolandish stuff, which is add cards and Carly stuff. And at this point I knew this is a very complex monster to out for Eldlich, because they can target and they cannot destroy by battle. So, and they cannot destroy by Conquistador either. So it's very hard for them to out Carly in this position. I knew the game was over. So again, I just tried to do the same exact stuff, and then he misplaced here. I told him that he shouldn't have said Guardian, because that's a card I was obviously going to target with Carly, because it's a card that actually nullifies the Carly setup. Like, the only way for the Eldlich deck to beat this Carly is literally with this card. So yeah, and then he just drops a big golden boy, and then just sets another card. He tries to out Destiny, and I just triggered this guy in my main phase just because this is the card I really didn't want on the field. I knew he had like the Conquistador and the Vaquero, and I really didn't care. So he triggers 2 more, which is a red splatter, and then this Black Awakening. At this point I knew that I was in total control of the game, because I had like 4,000 cards. So I use, he triggers Vaquero, and then I just keep playing. I didn't extend into his ISOL because I knew he still had Conquistador down. So at this point, I was basically just trying to force out this card and then in main phase to clear the board, right? So he outs Gearfried again. I out the big golden boy. I use Boars, and then I make some Boars magic, which means I was not going to lose this game no matter what happened from this point on. So I didn't care. Like, I add Olivier, and then I get another free card by recycling, which is a Lightning Storm. So even if the worst case scenario that I lose everything I had like 2 traps and a Lightning Storm. That was enough to win the game, so it really didn't matter too much. I get an extra normal summon, an extra Gearfried, and then I just summon Brothers. I get another free card. I took a standing, I keep extending because I don't care. I drew another card, and then I go for Thorigus, and then I pop the rest of his cards, and I honestly didn't care at this point. So again, red splatter for the second counter, like golden boy, like at this point I thought I had Tristan in deck, but I forgot I sided him out, so I just summoned Vanilla Arthoricos. Why Vanilla Arthoricos? Because the only other possible choice at this point was Goind. Remember, I wanted a defense position monster, so that's why. So again, it's a misplay on my part. So he just does that to out the Kostanin, because Kostanin is dangerous, because it leads into the other king, so he didn't want to do any of that. He outs Brothers to try to cut like my resources, but I honestly didn't care at this point, so he goes for another red splatter. Like, he was just flexing, like he was out of this game by this point anyway. So again, I just use Arthurius to force stuff. I force the Wakero, he moves the queen out of desperation, then I just use. Then I just keep doing my Noble stuff, and then recycle my queen, and then I honestly didn't care at this point, so I go for Rosaline, I go for Balls, I go for Queen, I go for King. I just out the Golden Boy, and then Gearfried, and then Gearfried is going to equip that guy, and that's pretty much game. So that was the replay. It was a quick match against Eldlich, so you can see the actual power ceiling of this deck. Like, you saw it going first, playing through 1 hand trap, and you saw it going second, playing against 2 disruptions. So as you can see, the deck is really not as fragile as most people think it is, but only if you've played like the full version. Like, the 40 card version would have fall short. Like, if he saved Conquistador to hit the Hulky Febrax, I would have lost that game. So yeah, that's pretty much, that's pretty much it. So it's very hard for me to recommend you the 40 card version, because it's way weaker. It just puts a big target, or a big hand trap target, or a big disruption target on Hulky Fibrax, and if Hulky Fibrax cannot resolve, the game's literally over for you. So that's that guy, and I'm gonna bring you more replays. I'm going to try to use other decks because not many people like, not everyone likes Noble Knight, but I mean, I could bring you Drachma. I'm good at Drachma as well. So I can, just so you can see like the new stuff. So that's pretty much it. See you later, guys.